The PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time. Naturally, it has many games in its library, greats such as Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil 4, Shadow of the Colossus, and GTA. The PS2 is also home of some really good RPGs, Rogue Galaxy, Final Fantasy X, Persona 4, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and Dark Cloud. But wait, what was that last one? That's right, today I am talking about Dark Cloud, a game I argue is the most underrated and overlooked PS2 game. Hello everyone, I am Neem, and this is Dark Cloud. So what is Dark Cloud? Dark Cloud is an RPG that features a young boy named Toan, restoring villages to their original state after they have been destroyed by a giant purple genie. Yeah, it's a little odd, but it's definitely charming. This game was developed by Level 5, the same company who has made Ni no Kuni, Professor Layton, and Yokai Watch. Now this game had huge expectations for itself, as it did have an issue in a magazine claiming to be the Zelda killer. And yeah, you can see how well that went considering Zelda is a billion-dollar franchise and this game has a rather niche community. Sorry Dark Cloud, but what did you expect? I've seen a few people claim that this game is a Zelda ripoff, but I don't necessarily share that opinion. While I do see similarities to Zelda, especially the design of the main character, this game is very much its own thing, especially for the time. See, this game has a very heavy rogue element when it comes to genre and gameplay. What is a roguelike? I'll get into that later, but first let me explain how this game is set up. The game begins with this strange castle-like place being shown. There are people dancing, and then there is this military soldier-looking guy with a devious mustache. He shows up, wrecks the party. He wants to summon something called the Dark Genie, so he and the genie can take over this game's world. This doesn't go to plan though, as the genie presumably eats the sergeant, and after that the genie visits Terra, the world we live in, and destroys every city in this world, capturing most of the people along with it. So it is our job as the hero of this story to save everyone, rebuild each town, and slay the Dark Genie. It's nothing groundbreaking, sure, but it's a neat story nonetheless, and it does the job just fine. It is serviceable. It is nothing more than a decent story. But shortly after you begin the game and take control of Toan, you meet a wise old man who acts as the tutorial guy throughout your adventure. So this game, in my opinion, has a pretty solid beginning. It is easy to understand, but raises a few questions that you might want to find out. But shortly after talking to the old man, you receive something called the Atla, the most important item in this game as it allows you to do everything. See, when I said Dark Cloud is rather rogue, it's because of the general gameplay loop. The loop of Dark Cloud consists of you visiting towns, talking to a few people, then entering a dungeon. Upon entering each dungeon, you have to find assets of that town so you can restore the town to its original state and move on. Each dungeon has a selected numbers of floor, and each floor is actually randomized, even on revisits. Item locations are different, enemy locations and drops are different, meaning that I believe this is one of the first major examples of a game being a roguelike game. Now, I'm not a huge fan of roguelikes. Big surprise if you know anything about my content, I am not a fan of a lot of genres. But Dark Cloud is an exception. Each dungeon can get a little repetitive as they are kind of the same, but with different skins. Dungeon 1 is a simple cave, Dungeon 2 is a forest, Dungeon 3 is a shipwreck, Dungeon 4 is a desert temple, and Dungeon 5 is actually rather unique because you have to walk in space. Now each dungeon has these orbs you will find, and upon touching these orbs you'll get something. This is how you rebuild villages, and this is a crucial mechanic in Dark Cloud. You have to collect every single orb in these dungeons, which might seem a bit tedious, but to be honest, it really isn't, considering you're most likely to explore every nook and cranny that these dungeons have to offer. I hated this mechanic when I played the game as a kid years ago, but now I love it, and it's quite possibly my favorite mechanic in this game. You can rebuild the villages however you want. You get this weird mix of dungeon crawler and life simulator game that works seamlessly, giving the game's nature and charm. This game is bustling with charm. Every PS2 game has insane amount of charms, which is why I love the console so much, Klonoa, anybody, but something about this game just feels cozy, and you could say oddly liminal. For people who aren't constantly on the internet, there's this trend where people find unsettling images, particularly ones of environments that look rather familiar to the eye, but don't look quite right. These locations shown in pictures typically lack any form of life occupying their given space. Dark Cloud reminds me of this. All of the areas except for a few are just empty. Even when the villages are completed, it's oddly quiet and a bit off-putting. But I love that about this game. The game gives off this charming yet very uncomfortable and sinister feel in some areas, and I'm just a sucker for that when it comes to any form of media. It isn't like you are alone, though. There are a variety of NPCs to interact with, and they are some of the NPCs of all time. If you interact with them, you can get some pretty valuable and cool items, but there's nothing more beyond that. They have some pretty neat interactions, very quirky, very charming, but they're just there to fill in space, and that is really all NPCs are for, right? To give this world a little bit more life, and they certainly do. And like I said, they are some of the NPCs ever, especially this guy. There are also party members in this game, and the cool thing about each respective party member is that each of them are a vital inclusion. You can scrap the word vital, but let me explain. Because dungeons and their boss rely on mechanics of each party member given to you in that respective area. And that is it. That is why they're vital. Zhao is a humanoid cat girl who has a slingshot and can jump over chasms and dungeons. The boss at the end of the first dungeon requires you to use her slingshot to shoot them down. Goro, the second party member, wields a giant hammer. He uses this hammer in dungeons to activate switches for doors and to knock the boss of his respective dungeon right on his ass. Ruby, a genie, uses elemental blasts, which also activate certain switches. There's Ungaga, which she just blows wind, and then there's my personal favorite, Osmond. He has a gun. That's it. All of these party members are useful in their own way, but only ways that the game absolutely requires them to be. You know? If you took out everything that this game throws at you to use a party member, you could easily play this game without them. As I mentioned, they're required to progress through the game, but I'll be damned, they are barely viable in combat. Dark Cloud has a really unique method of increasing your power. Each characteristic has a specific set of weapons. Tone has swords, Zhao has slingshots, Goro has hammers, etc. Every weapon has the same attributes, but different numbers of set attributes. Now what do all of these mean? By doing this, you can upgrade your weapon to a completely different and more powerful weapon. However, this takes ages, as there are a multitude of different attributes, such as fire, ice, wind, thunder, mage, knight, rock, dragon, witch, undead, etc. All of these basically do what you would assume by reading the name. They increase damage against certain types. If you have a higher mage stat on your weapon, you do more damage to mages. A higher rock stat on your weapon, you do more damage to foes made out of rocks. A higher knight stat on your weapon, you do more damage to foes who are knights or wear metal. This takes ages, like I said. Even with just the main character, I can't even imagine how long it takes to upgrade 6 different characters' weapons. This mechanic is cool, undoubtedly, but it can be brutal because there is also weapon durability in this game, and let me tell you, some weapons break fast, and if you break that weapon, it is gone forever. So hypothetically, you'll spend hours grinding for a weapon and then accidentally break it when you aren't paying attention. I did that. I did that, and I wasted 2 hours, and I didn't want to waste all of my time upgrading another weapon, so I just loaded a previous save file. This is one of the brutal mechanics in Dark Cloud, one of the most punishing ones, but there's also a thirst meter. Yes, you need to buy water and drink it while you're in dungeons so you don't die from dehydration. So you need to buy water and drink it while you're in dungeons so you don't die from dehydration. And how you increase your stats is a bit odd too. By completing tasks and buildings in each town, you'll typically get rewarded with the gourd or a fruit of Eden. A gourd increases how long you can last until you get thirsty again, and a fruit of Eden increases your health. There are also other food items exclusive to characters which raise their defense. Tone likes fluffy donuts, Sal likes gummy fish, Gora likes grass cake, and Ruby likes yogurt parfaits, which good taste, Ruby. I approve. This mechanic is very interesting, and I like it quite a lot. If I'm being honest, I think it makes the game even more charming. The fact that the characters have their own favorite foods just gives them a little bit more life, you know? And god damn, the music in this game is top notch. Easily one of my favorite soundtracks. I mean, it is playing in the video. So the music in this game is just crafted beautifully. I mean, I don't think it has like every soundtrack, like every song is a banger kind of soundtrack, but it is definitely one of my favorites. Like, I can listen to a lot of these songs and be like, oh man, this is good, but not every soundtrack is like a banger. And when I say soundtrack, I just mean track. I'm sorry, I'm saying soundtrack a lot, but every track in this game's album is so good. I love it. It's so great, man. You gotta check it out. So yes, this game can be monotonous though. Fair warning. Dungeon crawling made fun, but this game is hard. Seriously, this might be one of the most punishing and slow-paced games I have ever played. With all the mechanics that this game throws at you, all the inventory management and punishing behavior, this game can easily push players away. It can easily make you feel like this game is actively trying to push you away, trying to make you quit. It is like Dark Souls before Dark Souls existed. And by the way, I hate when people compare things to Dark Souls, even though I just did it. This game is hard, not for the faint of heart, you could say, when it comes to video games, because you will definitely need to dedicate a lot of time to this, a lot of time learning the mechanics, and I feel like that is what makes Dark Cloud a little bit on the underrated side too. I feel like a lot of people might have tried to get into this, but then it just wasn't for them. They thought it was too hard, they thought it was too difficult to get into, they thought it was too monotonous, too tedious, too boring, whatever. But really, it turns a simple gameplay loop and simple aspects right on the other side of the pancake. It makes it so fun. I had no idea where I was going with that analogy, but I think you guys get it. This game really is something special. I think it encapsulates what the PS2 was, just weird, quirky, fun, quality games. And I love it. It's such a good game from beginning to end. The ending is good. That final boss is so hype, although I screwed myself because, like I mentioned, upgrading party members is like stupid and very weird and not fun, and I think one of the only bad things about the game. So I didn't upgrade my party members, but guess what? You gotta use every party member for this final boss. So yeah, it's pretty cool in retrospect, but the fact that I was too oblivious to upgrade my party members and lacked the foresight for it makes this boss suck. Trust me, trust my opinion, please trust my opinion, please. So yeah, this is one of the PS2 games ever, one of the greatest PS2 games ever, and I loved everything about it, mostly. This game, like I said, is very fun, and if you want a time capsule of what the PS2 is, definitely check it out, but be warned, it's not for everyone. It is very much not for everyone. I love this game, but you could hate it. You could think it's dated. You could think it's just plain bad. But I think it has something special, and I think it goes to show that the PS2 had so many good games on its library.